Welcome to the overview video for Chapter 28, Into the 21st Century. Your learning objectives for this chapter are: number 1, to explain some of the most important new musical trends at the end of the 20th century and name the most significant composers and characteristic works associated with those trends. Number 2, to describe the effects of technological developments on music since 1970. Number 3, to describe the impact of non-Western musics on music of the Western classical tradition. And number 4, to describe the ways in which the culture and styles of popular music and of classical music affected each other. And number 5, to name some current composers in the classical tradition and their major works. In the early 1970s and early 1980s, music joined the digital revolution, and musicians in both popular and classical traditions used digital synthesizers. Some musicians combined live performers with synthesized or computer-generated music. One significant new technique is sampling, patching together digital segments of recorded sound. Advances in computing offered new possibilities that composers explored, including computer-synthesized sounds and computer transformations of sounds. Minimalism is an approach in which materials are reduced to a minimum and procedures simplified. It began as an aesthetic but became a set of techniques, as composers of minimalist works absorbed a variety of influences to create what has been called the leading musical style of the late 20th century. Minimalist artworks focused on basic forms and materials and did not seek to express feelings. A parallel movement was nurtured among musicians who reduced the amount of material and the pace of small changes that do occur. Lamont Young, born in 1935, composed music centering on a small number of pitches sustained at great length. Terry Riley, born in 1935, explored patterns created through repetition, experimenting with tape loops and with live instruments. 3 other Americans brought minimalist procedures into art music intended for a broad audience. Steve Reich, born in 1936, developed a minimalist effect called phrasing, which was not intended to be expressive. He attracted a wide range of listeners in the 1970s. By the 1980s, Reich applied minimalist techniques to works with significant emotional content, works sometimes called post-minimalist. Tehillim, from 1981, is a setting of psalm texts in the original Hebrew for 4 singers and orchestra, using rhythmic and melodic canons at the unison in constantly changing meters over pulsing percussion and sustained diatonic but dissonant harmonies. Philip Glass, born in 1937, writes music that emphasizes multi-layered ostinatos, rapid pulse, constant repetition, simple melodies, consonants, and slowly changing harmonies, and his music has won a diverse following. He secured his reputation with a series of major works, including the opera Einstein on the Beach from 1976. John Adams, born in 1947, began his career writing minimalist works and then blended minimalist techniques with elements from popular and classical music in works like his orchestral fanfare, Short Ride in a Fast Machine from 1986. Melodic elements in Adams's work have grown even more prevalent in the last 2 decades. John Adams' aria, Batter My Heart from Dr. Atomic from 2005, exemplifies the blending of post-minimalist techniques, which dominate the orchestral interludes, with the singer's slowly unfolding, expressive vocal line, whose tonality, arching shapes, and emotive power recall 19th century opera by Verdi and others. Adams has won a broad and enthusiastic audience by integrating traditional procedures with minimalist ones. Many currents in Western music were inspired by the music of Asia and Africa. Some composers, including Chinese-born Bright Sheng, born in 1955, drew directly on Asian music as illustrated in his solo cello suite, 7 Tunes Heard in China from 1995. These works go beyond 19th century exoticism in the respect that they show the intrinsic value of the traditions on which they draw. Another approach was postmodernism, in which all styles are equally available as musical material to be employed as the composer sees fit. Giorgi Ligeti, 1923 to 2006, created music that was in constant motion yet static both harmonically and melodically. He found new possibilities in the music of minimalists like Riley and Reich, and in reclaiming aspects of the 19th century heritage, including Chopin. In Ligeti's etude Vertigo from 1990, the constant repetition of simple material reflects the influence of minimalism, while the texture of overlapping continuous lines comes from electronic music concepts. Estonian composer Arvo Pärt, born in 1935, used simple materials influenced by Baroque and medieval traditions to create a highly individual style. The method he called tintinnabuli joins a simple diatonic melody with other voices that sound only notes of the tonic triad, as can be heard in 7 Magnificent Antiphons from 1988, revised in 1991. Alfred Schnittke, 1934 to 1998, followed new Western trends during the 1960s, and then turned to what he called polystylism, a combination of new and older styles created through quotation or stylistic allusion. The second movement of Schnittke's Concerto Grosso No. 1 from 1976 includes sections that evoke Vivaldi concertos, galant style, 12-tone music, and a hymn-like popular style. John Carigliano, born in 1938, frequently juxtaposes styles to convey meanings. A number of composers adopted the tonal idiom or sounds and gestures of Romanticism, a trend known as Neo-Romanticism. Penderecki focused increasingly on neo-romantic works in the mid-1970s and beyond. Having turned from serials to quotation in the 1960s, George Rochberg, 1918 to 2005, moved to a mix of neo-romanticism and early modernism in the 1970s. David del Tredici, born in 1937, embraced neo-romanticism to create whimsical, immediately comprehensible music for setting texts from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, as in Final Alice from 1975. Some composers invoked extra musical meanings and imagery, hoping that listeners would accept unusual sounds if their meaning were clear. The works of Sofia Gubaidulina, born in 1931, often have a spiritual dimension. Her sonata, Rejoice, from 1981, expresses the transcendence from ordinary reality to a state of joy. Murray Schafer, born in 1933, the leading Canadian composer of the era, traversed a wide variety of styles, but his most striking innovation is what he calls environmental music. Jennifer Higdon's Blue Cathedral from 2000 exemplifies accessible modernism. A one-movement orchestral tone poem, it is programmatic and incorporates effects that are typical of Debussy. The boundaries between traditions naturally began to blur, especially for those who valued music from more than one tradition and sought to create comparable music of their own. While many musicians have stayed within their own traditions, others cross over from one to another or blend aspects of several, so that for them and their listeners, the existing boundaries for all intents and purposes disappear. One hybridizer was Argentine composer Astor Piazzolla, 1921 to 1992, who combined the Argentine tradition of the tango with elements of jazz and classical music to create a new style, Nuovo Tango, or New Tango. Osvaldo Golubov, born in 1960, grew up in Argentina in a Jewish immigrant family hearing classical music, Piazzolla's Nuevo Tango, synagogue music, and klezmer, and has drawn on all of them in his music. Fusion and polystylism is found in Golubov's La Pasión según San Marcos, The Passion According to St. Mark, from 2000. For your 25 question quiz, I would know about the following. Know what sampling is. Know about the IRCAM Institute founded by Pierre Boulez. Know about minimalism. Know about Terry Riley. Know about Steve Reich. Know about Philip Glass. Know about John Adams. Know about Oppenheimer. Know about Bright Sheng. Know about postmodernism in music. Know about Ligeti. Know about Arvo Part and his Tintinnabuli. Know about Schnittke. Know about Corigliano. Know about George Rochberg. Know about Del Tredici. Know about Schaefer. Know about Higdon. Know about Piazzolla. Know about Golojov. And that ought to do it. Good luck.